So, if anybody's been watching the news, they know that the situation in Egypt is basically the biggest story. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to A, explain what's actually happened, B, explain what probably will happen, and C, what are the implications of what's happened. Okay, so the first thing that we really need to know is what actually happened to set this all into motion. First of all, Egypt has had a guy in power by the name of Hosni Mubarak for roughly 30 years. He was elevated to the position of president after Anwar Sadat, the former prime minister of Egypt, or president, I don't know what it was at the time, was assassinated predominantly for signing the Israeli peace accords, which basically paved the way for Middle Eastern peace for a while. Um, but basically, he was never elected when he took power, and he's been in power ever since. He's held so called elections, but they really haven't been elections. They've all basically been rigged. Sometimes there aren't even other people on the ballot, and he's been known to throw his political adversaries in prison for absolutely no reason. And he also helped the United States get away with torture. Um, and that's not me saying this. This is our people and the Egyptian people saying this. And by people, I mean intelligence officers. He also, we donate a lot of foreign aid to Egypt, literally billions of dollars. And what this guy did was he basically stole that money for himself, for his family. He stole billions of dollars. He just generally didn't care about the people in many other ways, but those are, some of the big ways. And then what started this now, because, this guy's been here for 30 years, was there was a revolution in Tunisia where the leaders of that country were literally thrown out of office and chased out of the country by a popular uprising. And basically, after that happened, that was in January of 2011, about midway through January. But basically, what happened after that was the Egyptians started to also protest, this time their government. And the response to it was actually pretty fast. I've made a timeline of it. They started protesting about January 27th, I believe. Then on January 28th, Mubarak fired his entire cabinet. On January 29th, he appointed a vice president for the first time in like his entire reign, so 30 some years. February 1st, he announces that he wouldn't run for re-election. February 5th, the leadership of his political party stepped down. And February 10th, he actually ceded some of his power to the vice president, but he refused to step down. So basically, you've had him cave one, two, three, four, 5 separate times already. So really, I have a hard time seeing how he stays in power. If he's caved this much already, he's going to cave more, especially with what's coming down the pipeline. So basically, my prediction is he will leave office one way or another. He'll leave office through his own means. That's probably my guess. He has to realize that this is not going to end well for him if he continues to grasp onto power. Because the military of Egypt isn't like our military. It's not entirely synonymous with the government, and a lot of people in the military have sympathies to the protesters. So basically, the military holds the key. Does the military stand with the protesters, or does it stand with the Mubarak regime? And my guess is that they will stand with the protesters. And one of the big reasons for this is because, like I mentioned, we give Israel, we give Egypt foreign aid, and a lot of that is spent on the military. So the military kind of owes a bit to the United States. They we manufacture weapons for them. They basically highly depend on the United States, and the United States has been pretty clear on where we stand on Mubarak, how we want him to resign, and our sympathies are with the protesters. And they're probably afraid of the United States cutting off aid if Mubarak stays in office, which is not good for the military. So it would be in their economic interest to stand with the protesters. And once they officially do that, I have a hard time seeing how Mubarak stays in power, and I think it's only a matter of time. But you've got Mubarak out of power. Now what? Revolutions have throughout history produced mixed results. I mean, you get people like the founding fathers in America who were generally pretty decent guys. I mean, some of them had pretty crappy ideas about slavery, but they were relatively decent guys. But then you also have revolutions like in Iran, where you replace one crazy bastard with another crazy bastard we replaced the Shah with the Ayatollah. And that was, well, we didn't do it, but that's what the revolution produced the Ayatollah of Iran, who is basically a pain in our ass now. So people are making this argument that, well, wait, do we really want this to happen? What if some radical gains power in a democratic election? It's a good point, but the specifics are where it falls apart. A lot of people think the Muslim Brotherhood is going to take power. The Muslim Brotherhood is a political group in Egypt that, honestly, they've supported terrorism in the past, but they're not just about terrorism. They're not an Al-Qaeda like situation. They're more of a Hamas situation. And Hamas has been completely misrepresented in the American media. Hamas does do terrorist activities, but it also does things like healthcare and education for the children, and it does a lot of good social good as well as having a dark side, and that's similar to how the Muslim Brotherhood is. But I think all the talk about the Muslim Brotherhood gaining power in Egypt is really for nothing. It seems that the protesters have focused on one specific opposition leader if Mubarak resigns, and that guy is Mohammed el-Baradei. This guy is outstanding. He won a Nobel Peace Prize. He spoke out against the Iraq War. He was a former UN weapons inspector. He's very intelligent, very articulate. I think he would be an absolutely great president. He would probably be the cleanest, least corrupt politician in the Middle East. So I hope that guy gets in power. I honestly hope he gets in power. Then the other thing is, some people have wondered about what about the Israeli peace deal that was brokered in the 1970s? Um, well, that peace deal basically is contingent upon the Egyptians have peace with Israel and we fund them, is basically what that deal is. So if they broke that peace deal, they would lose a bunch of funding. So I don't see anybody breaking that peace deal, no matter who's in charge. So I don't think. I think all those worries about that peace deal going by the wayside are basically nothing. Uh, so that's basically what's up with Egypt. So for all those who want to get up to speed, I hope this helped.